The night sky above India has always been a canvas of wonder. For centuries, storytellers looked up and saw gods riding across constellations. Mathematicians calculated lunar paths with startling accuracy, and philosophers spoke of the universe as an infinite ocean. But in the 20th century, a new kind of dream began to take shape. One not of myth, but of science. It was the dream of India reaching for the stars. This is the story of ISRO, the Indian Space Research Organization. From its humble beginnings in a fishing village to landing on the moon and preparing for Mars, ISRO's rise is not just a tale of rockets and satellites. It is a story of grit, imagination, and a nation refusing to be left behind in the space race. It is 1962. India is a young nation, still recovering from colonial rule and partition. Scarcity defines daily life. Yet, amidst these challenges, Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru voices a vision. Science must be at the heart of India's future. Enter Dr. Vikram Sarabhai. A visionary physicist with quiet determination, Sarabhai believed that space technology was not a luxury for rich nations. It was a necessity for solving India's problems: communication, education, weather forecasting. He declared, "We do not have the fantasy of competing with the economically advanced nations in the exploration of the moon or the planets. But we are convinced that if we are to play a meaningful role nationally and in the community of nations, we must be second to none in the application of advanced technologies to the real problems of man and society." In 1963, the first Indian rocket was launched, not from a giant complex, but from a church in Thumba, Kerala. The St. Mary Magdalene Church became the control room, the bishop's house became the office, and the churchyard became the launch pad. Rockets were transported on bicycles and bullock carts. Scientists wore sandals, not suits. And yet, when that small Nike Apache rocket pierced the sky, India had entered the space age. The world watched, surprised. Could a poor, developing nation truly sustain a space program? To many, it seemed impossible. But Sarabhai and his small team were planting seeds in barren soil. In 1971, Sarabhai passed away unexpectedly at just 52. His loss was devastating. Yet, his vision did not die with him. Dr. Satish Dhawan took charge. Known for his humility, Dhawan often credited his team before himself. When India suffered a failure, he took public responsibility. When success came, he pushed his scientists into the spotlight. Under his leadership, ISRO began to dream bigger. In 1975, India launched its first satellite, Aryabhata, named after the ancient mathematician. Built on Indian soil but launched from the Soviet Union, Aryabhata marked India's formal entry into satellite technology. Though its mission ended prematurely due to a power failure, the pride it instilled was enormous. The 1980s brought another milestone. Rohini, a satellite carried into orbit by India's own satellite launch vehicle, the SLV-3. It was India's first indigenously built rocket to place a satellite in space. Standing at the launch pad was a young engineer named APJ Abdul Kalam, who would later become the missile man of India and eventually the president of the nation. Each achievement was small compared to NASA or the Soviet space program. But for India, every success was monumental. Every step forward was against the odds: budget constraints, technological embargoes, and skepticism from the world. Yet, ISRO's scientists carried on, motivated by something greater than recognition, a sense of duty to their nation. By the 1990s, India was transforming, and ISRO became the invisible backbone of this change. Communication satellites brought television to remote villages. For the first time, a child in the Himalayas could watch the same broadcast as one in Tamil Nadu. The INSAT series revolutionized telecommunication and weather forecasting. Farmers received early warnings about monsoons and cyclones, saving lives and livelihoods. Remote sensing satellites mapped forests, tracked floods, and helped plan urban expansion. The data they provided quietly influenced agriculture, fisheries, and disaster management. Space technology, which once seemed like a distant luxury, was now shaping everyday life in India. And yet, the journey was not smooth. The world often underestimated ISRO. In 1992, India faced a major setback when the United States imposed sanctions, blocking the transfer of cryogenic engine technology for rockets. Critics declared India's ambitions crippled, but ISRO's response was simple: we will build our own. It took 2 decades of trial and error, countless failures, and relentless determination. But by 2014, India had successfully developed its own cryogenic engine, placing it among an elite group of nations. It was not just an engineering triumph. It was proof of India's resilience against global pressures. If the 20th century was about building capability, the 21st century was about proving ambition. In 2008, Chandrayaan-1 carried India's hopes to the moon. When its instruments discovered water molecules on the lunar surface, the world took notice. Suddenly, ISRO was no longer just catching up, it was leading discoveries. But the biggest leap came in 2013. The Mars orbiter mission, fondly called Mangalyaan. The world doubted India. Could a nation with limited resources reach the red planet on its very first attempt? Many said no. But when Mangalyaan entered Martian orbit in 2014, India stunned the world. Not only was the mission successful, it was achieved at a fraction of the cost of other space agencies. In fact, it was cheaper than producing the Hollywood movie Gravity. The headlines wrote themselves: India does it in its first attempt. That day, India became the first Asian nation to reach Mars, and only the 4th in the world. More importantly, it became the first country to succeed on its very first try. The red planet was now linked forever with the tricolor flag of India. Today, ISRO stands at a crossroads. Its rockets routinely launch not just Indian satellites, but also those of other countries, making India a trusted partner in the global space economy. The Polar Satellite Launch Vehicle, PSLV, is nicknamed the workhorse of ISRO, having launched over 300 satellites for international clients. But ISRO's ambitions now reach further. Chandrayaan-3 has already landed near the moon's south pole, an achievement that even space superpowers have struggled with. The L1 mission now studies the sun, while preparations for Gaganyaan, India's first human spaceflight, are underway. Soon, Indian astronauts, or Vyomanauts, will carry the tricolor into orbit. In January 2025, a new dawn broke when ISRO launched NVS-02 aboard the GSELV F-15 rocket. It wasn't just another satellite. This was the 100th mission in India's space history, a symbol of endurance and progress. As the rocket thundered into the sky, the world watched India expand its own navigation system, NavIC, ensuring independence from foreign GPS. With every orbit, NVS-02 reminded us, India's destiny lies not in following, but in charting its own path among the stars. And just months later, a collaboration unlike any other took flight. NISR, a joint mission between India and NASA, rose into the heavens. Its gigantic golden radar antenna unfurled like a flower in space, the largest ever sent into orbit. This satellite, built with Indian grit and American partnership, now scans every corner of Earth with breathtaking precision, tracking glaciers, forests, earthquakes, and shifting coastlines. For India, NISR is more than science. It is diplomacy written across the skies, a reminder that space is not a battlefield, but a bridge. The rise of ISRO is not just about India's pride. It is about global collaboration. In a world facing climate change, resource scarcity, and geopolitical divides, space may be the new frontier of cooperation. And ISRO is poised to be at the heart of that story. As India looks to the future, asteroid missions, lunar bases, and deep space exploration, the legacy of those early dreamers in a Kerala church still shines bright. They showed that greatness is not born from wealth or power, but from vision, perseverance, and the courage to dream beyond the horizon. From a bicycle carrying rocket parts to a spacecraft orbiting Mars, ISRO's story is one of the most inspiring sagas of modern science. It is a story of a nation that refused to accept limits, a story that turned skepticism into belief and struggle into triumph. India's journey in space is far from over. In fact, it is only beginning. And as ISRO looks beyond the moon, beyond Mars, and perhaps even beyond our solar system. One truth remains clear: the sky is not the limit. It is just the beginning. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you never miss the next story. Thanks for watching.